When I look back, I see that I had the tremendous privilege with UNDP over those years to work in almost all the regions of the world. UNDP has a universal presence. So I had this privilege to work in the Arab state, to work in Asia Pacific, to work in Eastern Europe and the Caucasus, and I'm now working in the regional bureau for Africa. So wherever I worked in my first 10 to 15 years in UNDP, what I've seen is great optimism, concrete progress in terms of poverty, but also in terms of governance. So there was this great optimism. And after the MDGs in 2015, we believed that we could actually eradicate poverty, not only halve it, but eradicate altogether within our generation. So we had the SDG, the Sustainable Development Goal 1, that looks at eradicating poverty. It's just to tell you that all the international community bought into that, and to tell you the kind of optimism that we had at that time. And I have to say that the past 6-7 years, the big change, since you're asking me what are the big changes you saw, and when I look at the long term, the big change I saw in the last 6-7 years is the huge setback that we are experiencing. The setback, of course, that was accelerated by COVID. We had a huge setback, poverty rising again, huge setback on the SDGs, many conflict, multiplication of conflict, the climate effect accelerating in many parts of the world and becoming visible. We're experiencing a military coup, but also eroding of democratic systems around the world with populism and polarization. So I have to say that when I compare from when I started, that was the first decade, I would say, of my career with a lot of optimism and concrete progress that we could see. And we are now in a place of setback, a lot of challenges. And I believe this is now that we actually need multilateralism and we need the UN more than ever. We are experiencing a setback in so many areas. And this is where we actually would need concrete action, and we will need to scale up the action. And this is exactly the moment where we need multilateralism, because we are now in an interconnected world. The challenges that we're facing cannot be solved by one country alone. Climate change, we won't be able to solve it country by country. The governance challenges and the conflict also have an international impact now. So it's extremely important that we have more multilateralism. But the challenge we face is at the very moment we need to work commonly on global public goods, this is where multilateralism is at its lowest. And that has been a challenge in my work in the past years. The other challenge, I would say, on top of that was and still is the difficulty in terms of financing. It's extremely difficult for countries to get the financing needed to invest in their development. And this is where we talk about now the reforming the financial architecture globally. And at our level in UNDP is the same. I mean, we need much more financing for programs that are more at scale. We cannot just work in a small fashion, a pilot fashion, and creating a center of excellence. We need a really large-scale program to have a real impact. And for this, we need financing. So that's an important challenge that I have been facing in the past years. There is a demand for action, for concrete action. There is a fatigue for many promises, and there is a demand for action. And I think the UN system and UNDP, with all its infrastructure and universal presence, has what it takes to actually deliver concrete action, support countries, work side by side with countries and communities to deliver concrete action. I really think that in this time of extremely difficult challenges, concrete action will become the silver lining. The silver lining in my career has definitely been this notion of action and concrete action. I'm a pragmatist. I'm very pragmatist by nature, but not only that. It's also what I feel the people are looking up to the UN to have, to help them move forward concrete actions. So that has been the silver lining. I worked in very difficult countries, in conflict countries, and that has been keeping the eye on the ball on delivering and getting things done. And UNDP has been a tremendous instrument for that. One really important example in my career that really marked me is my work in Timor-Leste. I worked 2 times in Timor-Leste. So Timor-Leste in 1999 got its independence. It was a brand new state. It paid the high price for voting for its independence, because you had pro-Indonesia militia that literally destroyed the whole Timor-Leste. It went out in its independence in ruins. You had 80% of the infrastructure that was destroyed in Timor-Leste, and about half the population that left the territory. So the country was on its knees. And in UNDP, together with the whole UN system and the peacekeeping, we supported, and I think it arrives once in a lifetime to support from scratch the building of state institution and a whole country. Specifically, we have supported the first election, setting up the electoral management body. We have very important supported the training of judges, public defenders, and prosecutors. That was a country that had never had a justice system of its own and didn't have any judges trained. So we established a training center, and we trained those for several years while we had international foreigners delivering justice in Timor. So participating to the swearing-in ceremony of the first ever judges, Timorese judges, public defenders, and prosecutors was really moving. And you could see exactly, concretely, what rule of law and supporting rule of law meant. It was not this, fussy concept anymore. So that was definitely, I think, unique moments in my career, and I'm extremely proud of what I've achieved with the colleagues. But in Timor-Leste, we also looked at a very important part. It's not only the peace and security, but also looking at the future and the trajectory of the country. And I supported with the colleagues the first ever national adaptation plan of action, the NAPA, in Timor-Leste. So nobody got any attention to the climate change agenda in a conflict country with peacekeeping having, the priority. But we again kept the eye on the ball and made sure to support the government completing that. And I remember an anecdote when I was presenting that at a management meeting. We had the police commissioner, the military, the SRSG presenting, and I had to represent UNDP at that time. And here I was passing just after the police commissioner, who explained how he was setting up the whole police force in the country. I came with my NAPA and explaining how this, the Council of Ministers just approved the NAPA, and I could see the puzzled eyes around me saying, what is she talking about? What is this NAPA? And actually, I had to explain the importance of it. I just said that 80% of the infrastructure was destroyed. So Timor was going to embark in reconstruction of most of its infrastructure. And you had to do in a resilient way. Timor-Leste is a seat, a small island state, very vulnerable to climate shock. So all the coastal infrastructure, the infrastructure in the mountain with all the flash flood, you needed to do things differently. And through this NAPA, we were able to introduce that. And it made a huge impact in all the investment that was done. So for me, that's also UNDP. In the midst of crisis, bringing development, bringing the path forward, the transformation forward for the country and keeping the eye on the ball. But I have worked also in Libya. And I think for Libya, what I want to say is, when I arrived there, we were in a straitjacket. Libya was divided in two, with two governments, one in the west recognized by the UN and the one in the east not recognized. And we were with this straitjacket working only in, or allowed to work only in the west. And I made it my mission from day one. For me, UNDP was serving all the Libyans. Libyans was one. So it was very important that we find a way to work in the East. So we really negotiated, and I would say fiercely negotiated, with the international community to get the license to do development also in the East, even though it meant engaging with authorities that were not recognized. And I'm very proud to say that we were able to establish a 100 million facility, and that, again, the silver lining, we were able to deliver reconstruction in the East that had one of the biggest cities that was destroyed by conflict. So you see the importance of delivering action in those contexts. And finally, I cannot not talk about the Regional Bureau for Africa, where I'm working now since 6 years. And here, definitely, one of the big moments was the COVID-19. We had all our representatives. We cover 45 countries in sub-Saharan Africa. All our representatives crying for helps. We do not, governments are asking us for tests, they are asking us for masks, they are asking us for protective equipment. Remember, there was no vaccine at the beginning. And here we decided that I'm managing the budget. So I proposed, I said, we should reprogram quickly. And we did that in the span time of 3 weeks with the agreement of the 45 government. And not only that, we also delivered in 6 months. Using our universal presence, we used our office in China. Remember, there was a lag between the pandemic, that started in China, but then by the time it reached Africa, China was producing again. And we were able to buy quickly and deliver in the countries, in Nigeria, in Cameroon, up to Zimbabwe and Madagascar, this mask, this test, and this protective equipment. And we did that in 6 months. For me, that really showed that, like people, institutions are really tested in times of crisis. And for me, UNDP passed the test. It is agile, it is quick, and we delivered, we were one of the fastest to deliver in this. That was a huge success and a huge achievement that I will keep with me. We are in a critical juncture now, but there are huge opportunities. As we say, crisis in Chinese is both challenge and opportunity. What I believe people are looking up to the UN is not only to be the convener, is not only to be the voice, is not only to do advocacy. They really want to see us walk the talk. They really want to see us and others, all the partners, moving, gearing towards action and concrete action. And for that, we have, I believe, 2 huge opportunities in the future. I think that climate change offers a huge opportunity. Decarbonization will be transformative. So we need to really make sure that we find the political will, that we push through to find the financing to push for those needed investment. And those needed investment will bring jobs, will bring green industrialization, and there is a lot of opportunity and potential in decarbonization. The second big opportunity, in my view, will be the fourth industrial revolution, the digitalization. That has, like anything, some risks, but it has also huge opportunities. Huge opportunities in terms of governance. It's, for me, a technology that can open up a great potential for participation, for inclusion that is much needed, especially at a time where I have said that our democracies, they are, being challenged from the inside. So there is a need really to do things differently, to bring more inclusion, more participation in the decision making. And technology allows us to do that. So that's just one element of how technology can be positive. That will be the two big trends where we will need to work. But again, to work towards keeping in mind always the silver lining. How do I get that implemented with concrete action? Thank you.